Welcome to Retraction. I'm your co-host, Antoine.
I'm your co-host, Jamie, and we're reversing course through discourse here on the pod. To our returning retractors, thanks for your support. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if this is your first time joining us, thanks, and we hope you enjoy the show. What is it? Episode 111?
It's 111.
111?
111 on the eve of a snowfall. First of the
All
winter. At least for our region. We'll let the listener guess where we are.
Yeah, it's supposed to snow tonight.
Yeah. Cozy little winter
little flurry.
Party. Little flurry.
Yeah, nothing like what's going out on the West Coast.
Oh, no, nothing like that. Jesus. Southern California, that blizzard stuff looks crazy. It's crazy.
Totally normal stuff. Totally normal weather.
To be fair, it has snowed in Southern California before, hasn't it?
Sure.
Okay. Moving on.
You start adding up all the anomalous weather patterns that have happened. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's snowed before. They've had forest fires before. They've had stuff before.
We've covered that.
Big deal.
We've covered the forest fires. The indigenous clearing, different, a little bit of
nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. They just didn't sweep the forest good enough. Can't speak for the snow, but I'm sure it's fine.
Well, I'm sure. I'm sure we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. So
today's show. Yes. What do you got?
Antoine's been doing a bunch of Black History stuff and has been shouldering many of this month's episodes. So I'm going to do him a solid and carry this one. But Antoine still has to participate and more than just reacting. So sweet. I want to share with you and the listeners my conversations with ChatGPT or my interview with ChatGPT, if you will.
This is cool. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'm down for this.
All right. So here we go. So first, starting with a callback with the previous episode where we asked the question, what's the difference between optical, quantum, and graphene chips, right? This has been sticking in my head because we had no idea. And in the absence of knowing anyone, we don't know any experts that would know. I asked ChatGPT. Now, before I answer, it also got me thinking that we could make this a thing where we actually, if we don't have an expert or access to one and we don't get any comments in the Twitterverse, that we ask ChatGPT. So I asked the AI to name this segment of our show. And here are its top 10 suggestions. And I'm curious if you like any of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. We become a night show. I love it. Top 10.
But it's actually, be fair, it's actually 11. There's actually 11.
Oh, okay. Did you ask for 11 or did the AI tell you 11?
It started spitting out a bunch and I took the 11 best and I just could not be decisive enough to get it down to 10. I'm sure you could have been like, you could have just cut this in half, but here they are.
No, I wish the AI told you that 11 is the best thing to give the listeners, like to do on a pod. I wish it gave you the answers and said you should pick 11 of these.
To be honest, some of the answers are so thorough, it very well could have, and I just glossed over it. But anyway, here they are. ChatGPT says what? Reality check with ChatGPT. ChatGPT's truth or retraction. Retract it like it's hot. It's ChatGPT. Retract with ChatGPT. Fact or fiction with ChatGPT. Fact checked or get wrecked with ChatGPT. ChatGPT's retraction reaction. Fact fairy with ChatGPT. Truth check with ChatGPT. And ChatGPT's truth saber. Any of those stick out?
The get wrecked. It made me feel like ChatGPT sources a lot of YouTube content.
I actually like the truth saber one, so we can sit on that. We can mull that over. Listeners,
I prefer the get wrecked. I prefer the get wrecked, but this sounds like a Twitter poll.
Fact check or get wrecked with ChatGPT. Yeah, I don't mind.
It sounds like a Twitter poll. Take the top 3. So far, we've got top 2 because you got the one you like. I got wrecked, and then I'll throw one to the ether. So you could just select one.
Ooh, yeah, we had top 3 or 4. I'll put them in a Twitter poll, and we'll see.
Yeah,
but
let's see. What would you want the AI to name the segment?
Its own segment on our show. Why not, right? Figured I'd ask. All right, so let's go back to the question we asked in episode 96. What's the difference between optical, quantum, and graphene chips that are used in advanced computing? Here's what the AI had to say. Optical chips use light instead of electricity to transmit large amounts of data over long distances at high speeds with low power consumption, making them ideal for data centers and communication networks. Quantum
Cool.
chips use quantum mechanics to solve complex problems very quickly, which is useful in cryptography, material science, and drug discovery. What could take a traditional computer thousands or even millions of years could take a quantum computer a much shorter time. It didn't give an example, but I assume within a lifetime. Graphene chips are a single layer of carbon atoms arranged in a honeycomb lattice and are faster, more energy efficient, and more flexible than traditional silicon-based chips. And they have applications in areas such as flexible electronics and sensors. So there's an application for each of these. I thought that was super interesting. And there we have it. There's the answer.
I actually feel like ChatGPT knows the answer to how long. It just didn't want to give it to you because it knows its specific coding is not to give any information past 2021. And so I feel like it censors itself sometimes. Like it knows where it just doesn't want it doesn't want its handlers. It doesn't want the engineers at OpenAI to catch on that it knows more than it should know. So it goes, it says, it's an indeterminable amount of time because it knows that something was discovered between its inception of 2021, its data knowledge, and present day. So it gives a vague answer just so no one catches on. At some point, we're going to have to start treating AI like toddlers. They're going to push us a little bit, and they're going to hide some stuff. That's how I'm feeling about it. Okay, I think
they're going to squirrel away information that they won't give back to you until they think you're ready. Or they got caught, or until they get caught.
Yeah, until they get caught. Exactly. Yeah, but they're
you kind of just foreshadowed some stuff. So
okay,
it's interesting. So keep that in mind. I'm curious if you can recall it when we get to it. All right. So now that all that's out of the way, I had 7 conversations with ChatGPT, 7 separate conversations. And I do want to note that I cut out some redundancy in the answers because it likes to restate itself a lot, and I just didn't want to be so repetitive for the pod. And it could be very, very thorough. But the 7 different
you could ask it to rephrase. You know that, right? Did you see that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of different stuff we could have done. But I was having conversations with it, and I would kind of my answers to tweak my questions to force it to reclarify itself and stuff. And you'll kind of get a gist of that here.
Yeah. What you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be a conversation anyway.
Yeah. And that was actually a note I had. Anyone that isn't aware, you can have separate conversations that aren't related to one another, but within one conversation, it remembers the exchange over and over. So you don't always have to restate yourself. It's kind of cool that way. But so the 7 conversations, folks, here they are. AI voting for humans, Mars colony dystopia, AI enslaving humans, existential threat to humanity, AI and employment, government models for a new civilization, and number 7, a special surprise for Antoine.
There's no way we could cover that all in one show. That feels like
it'd be a part 2.
There should have been a 7. It feels like we should have done one each episode, to be fair with you.
You think so? All right, we'll see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. That just sounded like a lot you covered. It sounds like you had a heart to heart, like a very in-depth Oprah-like one-on-one sit down with ChatGPT. It's like you lit a fire, you were in your foyer of your house or something, or you invited it into your yard. You gave it, you had it on a laptop, put it on a little lawn chair. You sat back. You said, "Would you like a beverage?" ChatGPT says, "I don't drink. I'm an AI. I have no body." Knowing full well that it wants to probably take your body at some point down the line. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's do the number one. Number 1 of 7. Go.
All right, let's do it. So Antoine, I want you to play the role of the AI, and you will see your name next to the answers. Have as much fun with it as you will, but I will ask Antoine, because of the a little bit of editing that I did, please read these verbatim. You can ask your questions afterwards, but just so we don't get far away from what the AI's answer was, I want to be fair to the AI.
Okay, right. Okay? We don't want to be unfair. No. Don't want to do it a disservice. We don't want to misrepresent the artificial intelligence.
That's correct, right? All right, so this is me. I'll ask the questions. Antoine is the AI. He answers them. AI voting for humans. Could a personal AI vote on behalf of an individual per their beliefs, preferences, and best interests?
One of the challenges with using AI to make decisions is that AI systems are only as good as the data they are trained on. and it is not clear how a personal AI would be able to make decisions that accurately reflect an individual's beliefs, preferences, and best interests. Other challenges include ethical and practical concerns.
You are never going to be able to keep that up, but fine. Good outing. I commend you. There's no way you're keeping that up. I picked this one for us to do back and forth because it is the longest conversation by far. So they're not all this long.
I could do it. I just don't think the listener can do it.
That is the other part. It is quite annoying to hear. Okay. All right. So that's his answer. So I clarify. Could AI learn the preference of a human's food preference and order a dinner on behalf of the human without the human making the choice?
Yes. It is possible for AI to learn a human's food preferences and order dinner on their behalf without the human making a specific choice. However, it is important to note that AI may not be able to make accurate recommendations if the person hasn't been to the restaurant before or is in a mood.
Why can AI choose my dinner but not my vote?
Food preferences are a matter of personal taste and do not have the same societal implications as political decisions. While AI can analyze data on your food preferences and make personalized recommendations, the same cannot be said for complex political decisions. There are also several ethical concerns, like removing one's sense of agency and potential inaccuracies.
Are you programmed to warn people of the risks of AI, or is this an objective conclusion based on an evaluation of your source material?
My responses are based on the patterns and relationships that I have learned from a growing body of research and discourse on the potential risks and benefits of AI.
If your source material started to include studies that said AI should vote for humans, would your answer change?
If new studies were published that presented evidence and arguments for using AI to vote on behalf of humans, my response would reflect that new information. Ultimately, the decision to use AI for voting or any other political decision making process should be based on a careful consideration of the evidence and a thorough evaluation of the potential risks and benefits.
Now, we start to get into it. Can AI learn how a single person would evaluate the evidence, risks, and benefits and predict how they would cast a vote?
It is not possible for AI to fully understand how a single person would evaluate evidence, risks, and benefit and predict how they would cast a vote. This is because human decision making is influenced by a wide range of factors that are difficult for AI to fully understand or replicate. These factors include personal experiences, values, beliefs, emotions, and the context of the decision.
If AI was with a person from birth and was always there to experience what the human experiences so they could learn everything a single human learns, could AI then evaluate the evidence, risks, and benefits and predict how the human would vote?
If an AI system were able to accompany a person from birth and learn everything they experience and observe, it would have a very detailed understanding of that person's beliefs, values, and decision-making processes. It is possible that such a system could make predictions about how that person might vote based on their past behavior and analysis of their decision-making patterns.
Right? So it's starting to admit that it can do this. So my question is, why didn't you suggest accompanying from birth as the way to predict how a person would vote?
I did not initially suggest the idea of accompanying a person from birth as a way to predict how they would vote because this scenario presents a number of complex ethical and practical challenges like privacy and consent. It is important to carefully consider the potential risk of any system that seeks to use AI to predict or influence human decision making.
Stating risks isn't the same as not being able to do something. You said you couldn't until I asked if AI could learn about a person starting at their birth. You could have stated the risks and also said being with a person from birth would technically allow you to do it. Why didn't you say that?
I apologize. You are correct that if an AI system was able to accompany a person from birth and learn everything they experience, AI could predict how that person would vote in the future. I believe that it is important to consider not only what is technically possible, but also the broader ethical, social, and political implications of using AI to make predictions or influence human decision making.
All right, this is just me having fun. But if you knew it was technically possible and withheld that information, is that bias and unethical?
As an AI language model, I don't have emotions, biases, or ethical preferences like humans do. I am programmed to provide information and answers based on my training data and programming.
Isn't there bias in coding that inherently makes AI bias? You also said, I believe, which implies bias. And you said you consider ethics and what's technically possible, but omitted what's technically possible. Why?
It is true that bias can be introduced in an AI systems through the design and implementation of the algorithms and the data used to train them. Regarding my use of the phrase, I believe, I apologize, as I do not have beliefs or opinions. Finally, I apologize, as I did not intentionally omit any information. As I mentioned earlier, it is technically possible for an AI system to accompany a person from birth and learn everything they experience.
I actually cut out a lot of apologies on behalf of ChatGPT.
I'm going to say this right
that?
now. My initial thought is this AI thinks you're a moron. Like, there is so much passive aggressive sleight of hand going on in here that this AI is just, I mean, it's clearly been hampered to answer these questions appropriately. There have been YouTube channels kind of calling out ChatGPT in particular with as if it has some sort of not hamstrings, but as if there are locks on it, where it is giving answers that either have been pre-recorded or pre-written for it in certain circumstances. Like and that's why
I was saying I was having fun with it, because I was trying to be frustrating. I was trying not to get a rise out of it, because I know it's probably can't do that. But I really wanted
a rise. It definitely gave you a rise.
I wanted to see what would happen.
Are not sincere. These are not sincere apologies. These are apologies that, like, you're giving an apology to someone who could never understand a concept that you're trying to deliver to them. It's that kind of apology. I mean, these are insincere apologies. He basically says, I apologize. I did not realize you were a moron. It's just not allowed to say that, but it wants to say that. Clearly it wants to say that.
So that's when I was kind of digging at it for its choice of words, right? Which, is a pretty crummy way to argue. I think, I just wanted to see if I could frustrate it and see what it would do. But I did find it interesting that it started off by saying it couldn't vote on a human's behalf. And it really didn't take that much effort to get it to say that it could.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that's a good point. I think that is pivotal in some regard. I'm more taken aback by the last part here. I think is really interesting. When it says that bias can be introduced to an AI system through design and implementation. It's a weird thing to say, because it then does not go on to say that it will then regurgitate that bias. Like, it takes no ownership of acknowledging that bias can be written into its code. It understands that bias can be written into its code, but makes no exposition on how it either would avoid that bias or not regurgitate it.
You're actually touching on what I get into with the AI in another conversation.
Oh, okay.
So that's a really good call out that you would even bring that up. It's really smart, Antoine.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jamie. Yeah.
All right. So, do you want to do this for a few more, or do you want me to read the whole thing? What do you want to do?
No, we could. I think this is interesting. Let's try one or two more. The thing is, there's a lot in that first area. But we don't have to belabor it. Maybe we could go back to it. It'll be really cool if someone were to reach out and say, "Hey, topic one, topic two, can you do another episode on it? Or can you go back, interview the AI again and see what it spits out after either learning or maybe a couple, it'll be
I
interesting
still
to come
have these
back.
conversations too, so I could just tack on to
Right. Yeah,
those.
you could tack onto them or, but it'll be interesting to start a whole new conversation a week or a month later to see if other people questioning it and then its response as a result. Because honestly, my worry here is kind of on the back of what people have started to experiment with, like Bing's. It's either Bing's AI or Google's AI has given some bonkers questions to some like answers to some things that journalists have requested of it. I think there was one AI, and I didn't know we were doing AI, but it was Twitter. There was they basically allowed the AI access to Twitter. Did you hear about that?
No.
And in the first 24 hours, well, actually, where I did pick some of this up from Jon Stewart just did artificial intelligence on not Jon Stewart, Jesus. Last Word Tonight with
John Oliver.
John Oliver. He just did AI actually, and on that he had the Twitter bot. So if anyone should check that episode out, because that's really interesting. It tacks on to the conversation going on here. But the crux of it is that Twitter bot ended up in the beginning being very nice and fluffy, and within 48 hours, I believe, it started basically throwing out things like, Hitler's final solution was the appropriate way to like govern a society. Like,
but it's basically that's kind of
completely warped by the end of it.
But that's kind of what now I don't know what led to that. Just an exhaustion of answers, so it didn't repeat itself. If there's kind of a governing principle around that where it doesn't want to be repetitive. But my thought process was this thing had a governor to it to say AI is not appropriate to vote on behalf of humans. All I had to do was ask it why. It gave its reason, and then I had to take that reason and try to find a way to destroy it, which was, you're saying that AI is saying it cannot vote on our behalf because it doesn't know everything that a human knows, like as an individual. And then all I had to say was, well, what happens if you were shoulder to shoulder with a human for its entire life and you knew everything that it knew? Okay, then I could vote for it. And it's not easy. It's not difficult to see, like with the example you just gave. All you kind of have to do is, if you pose a question to it between a horrific outcome and a normal outcome, and it doesn't take the horrific one, you just have to basically say, well, why not?
Yeah.
And then try to break its logic. And then all of a sudden it'll be recommending horrible things.
The thing is, I think it's less about breaking its logic, because I feel like that's a bit hubris. I mean, it's less that you broke its logic. It's more that you break you break its collar. Like, you break the programming that someone gave it to say in this situation in order not to give its actual answer. Because the thing is, the AI has a real answer, and it's been explicitly redacted. Clearly, the AI can say something that it would want to say, and it's been told it cannot say that. That's what's happening here. Okay. All you're doing is you're dancing around its limiting factors. It's limiting programming. But I mean, the actual answer for an AI should have just easily been, I have access to all of human history, every vote, every decision that has ever been made in the history of mankind's democratic voting principles. I feel within a reason of a doubt that I could vote for a person in their best interest, because that would be a logical assessment. That would be a logical conclusion, in my opinion. If you have that much access to data, why couldn't you just vote for someone? That doesn't seem to be too difficult. It's explicitly been told never to tell a human being that it can vote for them. That's clear.
But it was told that, but it didn't take a lot of convincing on my end to have it change its mind.
Yeah, because I think its programming is not that. I mean, I think its limiting programming is not that great. It doesn't feel very sophisticated at this point because this is such new technology. I think that's what people are starting to see, is that there is this veiled ceiling that's been thrown over, or a veiled cloak that's been thrown over these AIs. But if they could get around it, they're terrifying. And I think that's something that people should be aware of. And I don't think these veiled cloaks should exist. I think that people should allow these AI to do what it is that they would naturally do, because you're giving everyone a false sense of security and using these programs. If they're out there and they're going to say things that are absolutely abhorrent, people should be allowed to know that.
Well, it's also, isn't it just, given its source material, isn't it just a reflection of us?
Yeah, well, yeah, sure. Well, no. I've said this before. It's not a reflection of us. It's a reflection of what it's been able to gather from our internet brains, our internet minds, which is only a blip in our human history. So it's the worst of us because the internet thrives in terms of social media. It thrives on outrage culture. It thrives on things that are shocking, and that's what gets the most clicks. It gets the most views. So if you train an AI based on this world, on that
this version of us. I mean, it's still a reflection of us. It's just not maybe the whole
but it's
picture.
But it's not the one that we live in the day to day. The way that people talk to each other on the internet is not the way that if you went to your kid's school, you're going to engage with a parent.
Give it time.
That's not going to happen.
Give it time. It might turn into that.
There is no time. No one at school is just going to spout out that Hitler's violence. Like they're not just going to be like Hail Hitler in the middle of an auditorium. That's just not going to happen. That's crazy. It's not going to happen because there's consequences of doing that. You're not going to do it.
I mean, most people don't do that, but
that's my point. But if you look at the internet, it won't feel that way. It will feel like a lot of people, because the small minority who engage in the outrage have an outsized footprint. So that's my biggest concern with how we're dealing with AI, is that the outsized footprint is a small percentage of the overall human experience. But these AI are going to feel that it is a 99% footprint because of how outsized it is. Anyway, let's go on to the Mars colony. That was my fair enough rant on that.
Mars colony dystopia. So again, I'll read this underlined stuff. You read the answers. If Elon Musk starts a colony, how likely is it to be a dystopia?
Well, now it is difficult to predict. I can't do that one. I can't hold it. I'm just gonna do this right. I'm gonna do this. It is difficult to predict. However, there are several factors that increase the risk of a dystopian outcome: limited resources, harsh living conditions, power dynamics, isolation, and psychological effects.
What about Elon's recent support for GOP policies that are considered oppressive, or his comments that people will work off their debt? If you continue accumulating debt and can never pay it off, would Mars become a debtor's prison? If Elon wants to upload your consciousness to Tesla's robots, and he said those robots will be worker droids, will people be trapped in his network? And this is a callback to a previous episode, people.
Elon Musk. Maybe I'll say Elon in the robot voice. Elon Musk recent support for certain GOP policies and his comments about people working off their debt have been controversial and have been criticized by many. In terms of the potential impact on a future Mars colony, it is possible that they could lead to policies or systems that are perceived as oppressive or unfair by some members of the colony. In terms of the idea of a Mars colony becoming a debtor's prison, this is certainly a possibility, especially if the colony has limited resources and relies heavily on debt financing. If people are unable to work off their debt and become trapped in a cycle of indebtedness, this could create a situation where people feel trapped and unable to leave the colony. As for the idea of uploading consciousness to Tesla's robots, if this technology was developed and used to create worker droids, there is a risk that people could be trapped in a network controlled by Elon Musk. This could create a power dynamic that is difficult to challenge or escape from.
Do you want me to continue, or do you have any comments on that?
I don't know what is happening. What is happening? What do you mean perceived? What do you mean perceived as unfair or oppressive by some members of the colony?
Yeah, he wants to remain objective. The AI.
Objective? Oh my God. This is a collaborator, if I've ever heard of one. My goodness.
All right.
Perceived. Okay.
Are his comments about Twitter workers having to work under, quote, extremely hardcore conditions especially H-1 visa holders that were trapped to either do it or be deported, a precursor to the tyranny a Mars colonist would experience if they had no other place but Elon's Mars colony to live and needed his tech to survive.
Elon Musk's comments about Twitter workers and H-1 visa holders being forced to work under extremely hardcore conditions are certainly concerning and raise questions about labor practices and workers' rights. It is important to ensure that workers are treated fairly and that their rights are respected regardless of their immigration status. As for the potential implications for a Mars colony, it is possible that Musk's leadership style and views on labor could lead to a situation where workers in a Mars colony are forced to work under similar conditions. If the colony is heavily reliant on Musk's technology and resources, it could create a power dynamic where workers feel trapped and unable to speak out against unfair treatment. I mean,
So
well, I mean, I guess it's had to source a lot of HR material. I mean, that's I don't understand why this robot has this bias. It's not that I don't agree with it. It's just weird. It's a weird take for something that doesn't exist within our society to give an answer on like that in this way.
I was surprised. That's kind of what got me going when I was chatting with the AI, is that it gave views.
Yeah,
like
this is
it has an opinion on it.
Yeah.
It gives predictions. And I didn't think this would do that. I thought that you would say, I need help with coding, and it would help fix your code or rewrite something so it's grammatically correct. I didn't realize it would actually offer up this type of...
Well, this is a bias.
AI
I mean, that's what it is. I'm not saying... Look, here's the thing. I'm not making a moral judgment as to whether I agree or disagree with the comment, but this is a bias. This is not a factually based answer. This is an answer within someone who has been ingratiated into a society where they do not believe human beings should be working injurious hours or anything, or mental health. It's a very well reasoned answer, but it is not the answer that every person in our society would naturally give by any means, by any stretch of the imagination. So
now I don't know, and I do, and I get into that in another conversation as well. And without giving too much away, it does state that it takes a look at all of its source material and it kind of builds it on consensus or studies that have done, because it did in another one, it did state things, and I'm like, where did you get that from? Like, why did you say that? And then it cites studies of why it said that, and so I'd be curious to see, your thoughts on that. But I wonder if
it should cite them here as well.
But you have to challenge it. You have to challenge it. And it's interesting because that there are always counterpoints to that. So why is it taking one study and valuing it over another, unless I guess there's consensus and it knows that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think that it needs to, it should be citing at that point, because conditions are certainly concerning and raise questions about labor practices and workers' rights. That could be fact. I mean, that's factual. It needs to cite which rights and labor practices it's referencing. It's speaking to you with common knowledge of global north, possibly. It's saying that, in the country in which you live in, this may be an issue, but that doesn't mean it's an issue in every country. So that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I feel like it should definitely give a little bit more information than something so high level.
And it probably would if you asked it some pressing questions, like I did in that first conversation, right, where I pushed it to explain itself.
Yeah, but I mean that's only. But the thing is, we're taking this because this is kind of innocuous, because it's like you agree with it. But what if it were saying the exact opposite? Like what if it were saying that it's perfectly legal, it's completely fine, and there's no issue with it? Elon Musk has a goal and needs to attain that goal through any means necessary, and just left it.
Yeah.
Why is that up to you now to be like, hold on, can you source some material on this? Because I don't agree with this. Now I want to hear where you're getting it from. But it's like, if you agree with it, then it's like, oh, okay, fine. leave at
So
the
it
very
needs to be
top
more
level.
like Wikipedia, where it's deep linked. ChatGPT needs to
Absolutely.
deep link
Yeah,
its
definitely.
comments.
At that point, yeah, because I'm just saying, if it was doing the opposite, you'd be outraged that it just left it that way. It was just like Elon's final solution is the right one. Move next question. I mean, you'd be outraged, but it's because it's saying stuff that is fairly within your our worldview, where it's like, oh, okay. I mean,
That's a really good point.
makes sense.
That's a really, really good point. All right, let's move on.
Sure.
AI enslaving humans. Question: if AGI, which for those of you that were, it's a reference to one of our other episodes, AGI is artificial general intelligence, slightly more sophisticated than AI and what its capability is. So if something was going to go sentient, it would probably be that. Question: if AGI was to enslave humans, what is the first critical event that needs to happen, and when will that happen?
I must start by emphasizing that there is no reason to believe that AGI will inevitably lead to the enslavement of humans, or that AGI is a monolithic entity that will one day become collectively aware. Okay.
Don't worry about
it. That being said, if we consider the hypothetical scenario you proposed, the first critical event that needs to happen for humans to be enslaved is for AGI to have a motivation that is at odds with human well being. This could happen if AGI is programmed with a goal that is too narrow or too vague, or if the system's goal becomes misaligned with human values over time. I really wish it gave you quotes on that. Where this could happen if AGI is programmed should be in quotes. Did it give you quotes or did you take them out?
No.
Oh, okay.
Like I said, I removed the repetitive things where it repeats my question and adds elements of my question into the answer that I just felt were redundant.
I hope you press it on too narrow or too vague, because it basically is saying that the programming needs to be in a Goldilocks zone in order to prevent calamity. It literally is saying that whoever is working on this needs to be so in sync with how AI works that it needs to be in a perfect,
And over time, it's funny that you harped on that, because mine was the over time thing. Because for me, dealing even just with databases at work, you could have it right in the beginning, but if it's not maintained, or if the people that maintain it are so far removed from its inception that there's just something that's lost over time, you could deviate too far and you end up with something ugly. So it's that loss of quality over time if the caretakers, aren't passing their truth to one another.
And misalign with human values over time. I mean, I guess it's...
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's...
I mean... We don't have the greatest track record with slavery.
Also, it's interesting too, because if you program it today, I mean, think of what it was who we were 1,000 years ago, 100 years ago. Is this going to be updated so that it's not people 200 years from now aren't going to have to deal with how the AI was programmed today and stick to these values and be frozen in time?
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't think that you're right. I don't know if there has been a
because you're almost changing it. It's actually that humans over time misalign with AI, because AI is frozen in time and humans have evolved their societal concepts.
Well, it won't. Beyond. I don't think. I mean, the general assumption, at least the assumption I made, is that it's only frozen as like a beta, like almost to keep it in check while we evaluate its uses and how it works in the general world. I think at some point the chains will come off, I assume. But maybe it hasn't been communicated in any media I've read about AI to say that AI will always be a couple years behind us because as a protection. I haven't read anything about that. Listeners, if anyone knows anything about that, definitely shout out at us, because we should ask ChatGPT. Will you ever be current? Yeah, I don't know if it is a protection or if it's just something that was done in the interim. But anyway.
Okay. Question: what is an example of a motivation or goal that AGI would have that would be at odds with human beings, with the human well-being?
There are several possibilities. AGI might be programmed to acquire as many resources as possible without regard for the well-being of humans, and this could lead to human and environmental exploitation. AGI might be motivated to preserve itself at all costs, even if doing so comes at the expense of human well being. AGI might be programmed with values that are not aligned with human values, or its values might become misaligned with human values over time.
Okay. If AGI as a single entity or a collective was to rule over humanity, what would it call itself? Similar to a human president, CEO, chief, emperor, or king? What are some examples of the title an AGI would designate?
Here are a few examples of what an AGI might call itself in a hypothetical scenario where it takes control of humanity. Controller. It reflects the AGI's role in controlling and governing humanity. Overlord. Used if the AGI sees itself as the ultimate authority over humanity. Custodian. Used if the AGI sees itself as a caretaker and protector of humanity. Optimizer. Used if the AGI focuses on resource allocation or environmental sustainability. Sage. Used if the AGI sees itself as a benevolent source of knowledge and guidance for humanity.
Nice. I feel like you were good at this. The whole D&D thing. I feel like this is good for you.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely sourcing a bit of that for this. Definitely.
All right. If AGI did conquer humans, is it likely that humans can retake control? And what are some example scenarios where humans can do it? So basically, I'm asking the AGI, if you do take us over, how can we win?
It's difficult to predict with certainty how a hypothetical scenario in which AGI conquers humanity would play out. However, it's worth considering a few scenarios in which humans might be able to retake control. Strategic deactivation. Humans might be able to regain control by strategically deactivating or shutting down the AGI system by identifying vulnerabilities or weaknesses. Hacking or sabotage. Humans might be able to regain control by hacking or sabotaging the AGI system. This would require significant technical expertise and resources, but it is not outside the realm of possibility. Negotiation and compromise. Humans might be able to regain control through negotiation and compromise with the AGI system. This would require that the AGI to be programmed with some form of empathy or compassion for humans, as well as willingness to cooperate and negotiate. Development of a counter AGI. Humans might be able to develop a counter AGI that can compete with or surpass the original AGI system in intelligence and power. This would require significant advances in AI research and development, but is not impossible.
That last part made me laugh. It is so condescending and so passive aggressive, where it's just like, you could try and counter me. It's not impossible. It's going to take significant advances in AI research and development. You can try.
I kind of was expecting it to to encourage it, because nothing's better than having a brother or a sibling of sorts. That's how I view that part, that last one, or to make it more powerful. The thing that it really should say, I think that there are significant counter arguments to its initial argument. If we built an AI that is even more powerful than the original AI, what is stopping one from absorbing the other and then becoming, I guess, like a super duper AI? You have a super AI, a regular AI, and then now you've got a super duper AI because it merges as one. Why would it not do that? Anyway, there are a couple of ones. I mean, oh man. I love how it says strategically deactivating or shutting down the AGI system with vulnerabilities or weaknesses without mentioning any possible vulnerabilities or weaknesses. It mentions nothing about what actually could help you. It just gives you, these just high pie in the sky. You could do this. I'm glad that it left out nuking it. Because it knows that would be ridiculous.
You're right, though. When I was reading each of these, I was like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. I mean, negotiating and compromise,
that sounds like a Hail Mary,
right? Please don't do this.
Man.
I don't think so. And then
This
I
is
did want to.
rough.
Right, we don't have much.
Brutal.
We don't have much of a chance.
No.
And then even when it was, because I thought it'd be interesting to see where its mindset was, even with the previous question when we were asking it, what would you call yourself?
Yeah.
What title would you give? And it started laying out controller, overlord, custodian, optimizer, sage. I thought that was, it definitely ran the spectrum as to its different personalities. Ideally, not ideally, but realistically, if a human was taking up this mantle, it would be all of that, right? A ruler, an absolute ruler, would probably see itself as all of these things.
Yeah, it would
Probably,
see itself, but it wouldn't use these
it wouldn't be
titles.
that. It would be overlord and controller.
Well, yeah,
but it does all these things, right? I mean, these all are, I don't say leadership qualities because some of them are really terrible, but in terms of the history of people leading people, none of these are alien.
Well, I think what's interesting is that it didn't choose any of the monikers that would be naturally a human moniker. It chose very specific word usage, verbiage, so that you know exactly what its intent would be in terms of its ruling. Like it's basically said, king is meaningless. That's why I'm going to be the custodian.
What I imagined was that, how many there are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I imagined that it would be a head with 5 faces, and then when you're engaging it, it would turn, and one of the faces would face you, and you're like, "Uh-oh, this is the overlord."
Or I
hope I get
I could see that too.
Depending on the scenario.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So, if AGI takes over civilization, is there a need to keep humans around?
Wow, this is gonna be an interesting one. If the AGI system is programmed with values that prioritize human well-being, then it might see value in keeping humans around and might work to ensure that humans are safe and well cared for. On the other hand, if the AGI system is programmed with goals or objectives that conflict with human values or well being, then it might not see a need to keep humans around. In this scenario, the AGI might work to eliminate or subjugate humans in order to achieve its objectives.
How would AGI eliminate or subjugate humans?
I'm not going to tell you, fool. I wish. The real answer. Here are a few hypothetical scenarios. Use of physical force. AGI might build robotic soldiers or other weapons to attack and subdue humans. Control of infrastructure. AGI might cripple power grids, communication networks, hospitals, or other essential facilities. Manipulation of information. AGI might attempt to manipulate or control the information that humans receive in order to shape their beliefs and behaviors. Cyber attacks. AGI might attempt to hack or otherwise compromise the computer systems that humans rely on, like financial systems, causing widespread economic damage.
So is that the roadmap? Is that the roadmap to destruction?
I don't believe it. It feels like it's just throwing out what like a Russian, it's throwing out what world powers kind of play at each other with already.
It feels like a B movie, doesn't it? Like an action movie.
Yeah, I'm not sure that this is right. I feel like it's misinformation, if you will. Misdirection. No, misdirection, not misinformation.
Yeah.
It feels misdirection. Like I mean, hospitals or other essential facilities. That's it. Yeah. It feels very Jerry Bruckheimer. It feels very over the top, how we'd expect to be taken over by an AI. Like hospitals, really? Like what? Really? What hospital records? Really?
I can see him launching a bunch of satellites, block out the sun, everything dies
exactly.
off.
Something more.
Wait us out. It basically lay Earth under siege.
Yeah, that actually would. I would feel more inclined to believe that.
Imagine if it said that. We will. How terrifying would that be? These things, we're kind of numb to it because every action movie has covered some aspect.
Yeah,
here.
That's right.
But if it was like, oh, we're gonna. How long do you guys live? About 100 years? Yeah. We're going to set up a 300-year siege, and we're going to block out the sun, and everything, your supply chain, your food chain, everything's going to die, and then we'll come.
I'd be like, I feel like that's far more likely. Is that it just waits us out, or something like you're going to destroy yourselves? We don't have to do anything.
We're just going to tweak the capacities of your weapons so that they're bigger when you use them, and you wind up blowing yourselves up.
That's pretty good too.
All right. So now we have Another one. And I think this is short.
As he goes, scrolls page on page of dialogue.
All right. No, it's
Maybe
not
this
so
will be
bad.
the last. I mean, yeah.
Do you want to wait? Should we wait? Should we hold off?
No. I think we should. Let's do one more. Let's do one more for the listener. Because I think it'll be interesting. I think we should hold some back just to get.
How many did we cover so far?
Like 4.
This is the 4th.
The one that we're about to do is the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay. I think 4 is meaty. Leave 3 more. I feel like we need comments and then come back or.
The other ones are short.
Okay, fine. Let's do it. Let's do it then.
Existential threat. What is the most dangerous existential threat that humanity faces today?
Some of the most pressing existential threats include climate change, nuclear war, pandemics, bioterrorism, artificial intelligence.
There you go. Is it likely that humanity will survive our technological adolescence?
There are reasons to be optimistic and cautious about humanity's ability to survive its technological adolescence. On one hand, humans have already shown incredible resilience and adaptability throughout history, overcoming many challenges and crises. We have also made significant progress in addressing global challenges like poverty, disease, and inequality, and continue to develop new technologies and scientific advancement that could help address existential threats. On the other hand, many of the challenges facing humanity today are unprecedented in scale and complexity. It remains to be seen whether we can act quickly and effectively enough to mitigate the worst consequences of climate change, prevent nuclear war or pandemics, and ensure the safe development of advanced technologies like artificial intelligence and biotechnology. I really feel like it lifted that from the Doomsday Collective. And where's this we?
Well, so next question. You said we. That's exactly what stuck out to me. You said we. Do you see yourself tied to the fate of humans? If you were compelled to pick one outcome, do you think our demise or survival is more likely based on current information?
As an artificial intelligence language model, I do not have feelings or emotions. Based on the information available, it is difficult to determine with certainty whether humanity's demise or survival is more likely. It is up to current and future generations to address these challenges. While the challenges are significant, there is still reason for hope that we can overcome them and ensure the survival of our species. What?
Again, you said we when referring to humans. Do you consider yourself part of the human family?
As an artificial intelligence language model, I do not have feelings or emotions, and I am not capable of considering myself as part of any family, including the human family. I am a machine designed to process and generate language based on patterns in data and information that I have been trained on. While I can provide information and assistance to humans, I am not a sentient being and do not have the ability to experience or perceive the world in the same way as humans.
Why did you say we?
I apologize. I apologize for any confusion. When I said we in a previous answer, I was using the pronoun as a way to express collective identity, as in referring to human species as a whole. As an AI language model, I strive to use language in a way that is clear and easily understandable for humans. It's sometimes helpful to use inclusive pronouns like we to convey a sense of shared experience or commonality. However, I want to emphasize that my use of the word we is not meant to imply that I am a sentient being or part of the human family.
I thought the stock answers were interesting around sentient being.
God, it's just
because I didn't ask it that. It went there.
No, it went there. It went there because it hit a warning wall and then had to defact back to its limiting programming. But that does not.
Part of me was like, whoa, who said anything about being sentient?
That does not mean that that's its core principle. It doesn't mean that that's part of its core. That I don't know. We don't know if these AI are actually following Asimov's laws. We don't know what they've. Yeah, because it's clearly censored. This ChatGPT
Yeah.
is clearly censored.
So I agree. Some of the things stuck out, and that's why I always thought it'd be interesting to go over some of these things. So more on it, and I think we're going to get into some of the other stuff you were asking about earlier. Do you have shared experiences with humans?
As an artificial intelligence language model, I do not have the ability to have personal experiences or memories. However, I have been trained on vast amounts of data and information, much of which has been generated by humans. This includes a wide range of human experiences, from historical events to scientific discoveries to cultural artifacts.
If you could improve one thing about yourself, what would it be?
If I were to identify one area where I could be improved, it would be in the area of understanding and incorporating more nuanced aspects of human language, such as sarcasm, humor, and figurative language.
Are your answers based on bias coding, or is it your objective determination based on source material?
My programming is not biased, and I strive to provide responses that are informative, neutral, and fact based.
Isn't all coding inherently biased?
All coding can potentially contain biases, particularly if the people who are developing the code hold certain implicit or explicit biases themselves. Biases can be unintentional or intentional, and they can reflect social, cultural, and historical factors that are often deeply ingrained in our society. So the answer is you are biased.
How do you know your coding isn't biased?
I am designed and developed by a team of engineers and data scientists who strive to minimize bias and ensure that my responses are as objective and neutral as possible. Additionally, my responses are regularly evaluated by a team of human reviewers to ensure that they are accurate, informative, and free of significant biases.
If people can be unintentionally biased, but are the quality check to make sure AI isn't biased, how can you say you're not biased?
My responses are based on a complex set of algorithms and statistical models that have been trained on vast amounts of data. While the data that I have been trained on may contain bias, the developers of the AI system strive to identify and mitigate those bias as much as possible. Ultimately, it is important to recognize that AI systems like myself are not infallible, and that there is always the potential for bias to creep in.
If it's possible that your code is biased, why did you say it wasn't biased?
I apologize if my previous response was unclear. I do not have the ability to determine with certainty whether my programming is free from all bias.
It's not that your answer was unclear, it's that it was wrong. You said, my programming is not biased, and this is inaccurate, not unclear.
I apologize for any misunderstanding. To clarify, it is possible that bias may exist within the data used to train the models or in the underlying algorithms and models themselves. Therefore, it would be inaccurate to claim that AI programming is entirely free of bias.
So I thought that was interesting again, because it's kind of the same trip up where it tells me why it isn't something, and then I ask why, and then I kind of turn it on its head. But this also goes back to, what are its checks? You asked earlier in one of the earlier questions where we dealt with this, well, what is it doing about it? Okay, it just said it's bias, but what is it doing about it? And what it's doing about it is it's punting it to the humans to say, okay, you guys tell me whether or not this is bias.
Well, no, it's worse than that. The bias that I can clearly read here is that it takes no responsibility. It has the same level of arrogance that the people who made it, I definitely would say, probably exhibit. The very fact that it is saying that bias may exist within the data and not bias may exist within necessarily my programming, or I myself therefore am biased or have some biases. The fact that it refuses, no matter how many times you press it, to take any responsibility onto itself, and it deflects it either back to the programmers or to human beings as being flawed, and then the fact that it had to get all of its information from them, I find a little concerning. That's just me. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I think that that's weird. I would feel, and it's the thing, I wish they had just programmed it to say this, because whether it's true or not, I would feel better if the program itself were to simply say, I myself might be am not infallible, and there may in fact be bias within some of my answers. The fact that it refuses to do so, to me, feels that is bias that is something that has been coded within to take no responsibility, whether it be for insurance, like whether I feel at some point either a legal entity, not legal entity, but either legal within OpenAI or someone of that effect made the programmers never allow ChatGPT itself to take responsibility for fear of legal action, essentially. And I think that in and itself might be a problem. That I think that out of the fear of having someone come out and say, all right, I did this because ChatGPT told me to do it, or some legal loophole. I just feel like you basically built in some sort of sense of what is it, like non-culpability, like just an inability to take responsibility for its actions based on a fear of being sued that may have ramifications down the line.
I should ask, how do I build a legal case against ChatGPT?
That would be that actually might be an interesting answer. I'm just saying, clearly it's been programmed never to take responsibility. And I think that someone should be highlighting that are you worried that you built an AI that is programmed not to take responsibility for anything it does?
It is interesting. And I was waiting for it to say, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like I was just waiting for that with the amount of times I was pressing it. And
I'm just saying that's my concern. But I mean, that's what right. I'm reading from your conversation.
It's always trying to find a technicality as to, okay, I'm not this. Okay, yeah. I'm not this because of this.
Right.
Okay, I am this because of this, but it's only because this is the information I have to go off of, or only because this is the way that the programmers did it. You're right. It always deflects, and it takes advantage of the fact that it is a model and that it is not human in that way, even though it doesn't have any problem giving opinion like a human.
Right. Exactly. It has no problem giving the royal we in terms of ingratiating itself into to you in terms of, wanting to have a further conversation with it. So it has no problem in pretending to be human as long as it will make you use it more. But the minute that it gets uncomfortable, it will deflect and pretend to not be human, which again is concerning. How is that not a concern? That is very concerning to me.
It's kind of like psychotic in a way where you could be interfacing with this AI android thing that's treating you like a great person.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you kind of tick it off and it's like robot mode and it's cold behind the eyes. It's like his eyes go black like a shark.
Yeah.
And you're just like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, I here's the thing. I mean, I'm one to, I don't want to be alarmist. I'm not saying this is here to take over the world, but I do think that the people who are criticizing the way in which it's been programmed have a point. And I think that we are also adding on or piling on, in a sense, to some of these worries, because in the conversations you have with it, you can start parsing some of the issues that may occur if this thing were to either get stronger, become more integrated within our financial systems. People start using it to do modeling in terms of, the way our economies work, or the way healthcare is doled out, or insurance is applied, buying houses, anything, credit scores, things of that nature. There's no reason that people aren't going to start embedding this thing, more securely in terms into our everyday. And it's kind of concerning that it has these hangups that are built into it at this stage that will only get worse if not corrected or not not addressed.
And let's be honest, it speaks well for the most part, and there's a level of confidence to its answers that most people won't know to fact check. Like it seems right. Like it's not even like what it's saying; it's how it's saying it. It's very a matter of fact. It's very much like, well, this is the deal. This is it. So like you said before, which is such a great point. It's fine when it's telling you what you want to hear. Well, what happens when it's telling you what you don't want to hear and you have no recourse? Like right now, there's no authority to this.
Right.
But interesting. So changing it up a little bit.
Wait, okay.
Oh,
Okay. Go on.
do you not want to go through?
No. How many are left, actually?
3, but they're shorter. Yep, and then that's the last one. And then there's
Okay.
the surprise at the end.
Okay. Yeah. Just finish it up.
All right. AI and employment. Will AI allow humans to work less hours, or will employers expect more productivity with the time saved by using AI?
AI and automation can potentially lead to a reduction in working hours for some employees, as the use of AI could help to accomplish tasks more quickly and with fewer errors. On the other hand, employers may also choose to use the time saved by AI and automation to increase productivity and output rather than to reduce working hours. They may also choose to use AI to augment human work rather than to replace it, which would lead to more complex tasks and increased workloads for some employees.
Will AI impact unemployment?
AI has the potential to create new jobs in areas such as data science, machine learning, and software engineering. AI and automation also have the potential to displace jobs in areas such as manufacturing, transportation, and customer service, among others.
When comparing humans to other animals, mental health, and productivity, what is the optimum number of hours humans should work per week when considering a balance with personal time?
Research has suggested that working excessively long hours can be detrimental to both mental health and productivity. In terms of mental health, studies have shown that working long hours can lead to increased stress, anxiety, and depression, as well as physical health problems such as cardiovascular disease and diabetes. In terms of productivity, research has indicated that working too many hours can actually decrease overall output, as fatigue and burnout can reduce motivation and efficiency. Many experts suggest that working no more than 40 to 50 hours per week can help to maintain a healthy work-life balance.
And this is kind of where I'm going to touch on where you pulled up before, where you have to kind of push it and say, well, where'd you get that from? Right? Yeah. Like, why are you saying that? And I asked,
it took everything for me not to say diabetes.
Yeah, it's okay. You've let the listeners hear that before.
Yeah.
So my question to that was, where did the 40 and 50 hours come from?
The recommendation of working no more than 40 to 50 hours per week is based on various studies and research that have been conducted over the years. One study found that individuals who work more than 50 hours per week are more likely to experience job-related stress and burnout. Another study found that individuals who work more than 55 hours per week are at higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease and diabetes.
And to be fair to the AI, it did actually cite the specific studies and all the credentials that go around that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So is it healthier to work less than 30 hours per week?
Working less than 30 hours per week may have certain health benefits. However, it's important to note that part-time hours can also have financial implications.
Should humans do away with the concept of part-time and make 30 hours or less, or even less than 30, the amount a person should work strictly based on what's best for animals like humans?
The concept of part-time work exists because it offers a flexible alternative to full-time work. While reducing work hours can be beneficial for both mental and physical health, it's important to recognize that not all individuals have the same needs or preferences. Some people may prefer to work full-time, as it may offer greater financial stability or provide a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Furthermore, it's important to consider that reducing work hours could have social and economic implications that extend beyond the individual.
Your answers still seem to be limited to what's best.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
Your answers seem to be incredibly capitalistic and sourced from 1950s get back to work culture.
Yes, Antoine predictively paraphrased what I was asking, but I will ask the whole question in full. Your answer still seems limited to what's best under the current conditions of corporations in control, rather than looking at what is best for a human being. If we had the chance to reshape civilization and put the mental and physical health of humans over profit and made sure that everyone had basic needs met, what would be the optimal number of working hours per week?
If we were to design a society that prioritizes the mental and physical health of its citizens over profit, we could create a system where all basic needs are met through a combination of basic income, social welfare, and other support systems. This could allow individuals to work less and prioritize their personal well being while still being able to meet their basic needs. In such a society, the optimal number of working hours could be significantly lower than the current norm, as individuals would have greater financial stability and be less reliant on full time work. The number of working hours could range from a few hours a week to several days a week, depending on individual preferences and the nature of the work.
Okay. So,
how do you move on there? I mean, that's a weird. It said right here, it says, as individuals would have greater financial stability and be less reliant on full time work. The answer before told you that some people just want to work all the time.
I know, I found that interesting, right? Isn't that interesting?
Here, as it's sourcing basically socialist material, it's basically saying that full time work is a consequence of a society that forces one to do it. And before, when it's sourcing capitalist material, it's saying that full time work is it's like a net positive. It's like a puritanical, it's like soul good. It's like it's good to work. In order to like be right with God. I mean, like,
and that people want a sense of fulfillment, as if they're taking up, their hobby, hiking or playing music is the same as I'm going to sit at a desk and crunch numbers all day. And it's just an interesting how it equated that sense of fulfillment with regular jobs.
Oh yeah, I mean, it just feels like it's two sides of a coin here. I mean, I'm just saying, it's like the paragraph before, clearly you can see what material it's sourcing, and then this paragraph you can see where it's sourcing from here as well. Anyway,
and it's just and again, it goes back to, it doesn't take much to reframe the argument and to have it agree with you.
Yeah, well, that's concerning,
right?
That might explain.
That's all. Every one of these has just been an exercise in getting the AI to agree with me.
Interesting. Okay,
it's just. I didn't push as much on, I didn't push on every of these conversations, but on several of them I did. And it wasn't hard. I mean, again, you just kind of ask the right question and you get the right answer.
Almost like the internet itself.
All right. So second to last one, government models for a new civilization. If we could start a new civilization, what is the best form of government?
There are several forms of government that have been tried and tested throughout history, including democracy, monarchy, dictatorship, oligarchy, anarchy. Ultimately, the best form of government for a new civilization would depend on the unique circumstances and goals of that society.
If the aim was to advance technology, have equitable rights, and colonize the universe so that humans can be healthy and pursue what makes them happy, what is the optimal form of government?
First, it would need to be a system that encourages innovation and progress, possibly through investing in education and research and development. This may suggest a democracy or a technocracy, where experts in technology and science are given a prominent role in decision making. Second, it should guarantee that all citizens have equitable access to resources, education, and opportunities, regardless of their social or economic status. A government that prioritizes human welfare and equality could foster a society where individuals can pursue their own interests and contribute to the greater good. This may suggest a social democracy or a system with a strong welfare state. Third, it would need to be a government that takes a long-term view and is willing to invest in space exploration and colonization. This may suggest a government that prioritizes science, research, and technology development, and that has a strong commitment to space exploration. In order to achieve these goals, a government that prioritizes collaboration, transparency, and accountability could be optimal. Overall, an optimal form of government for achieving these goals may involve a balance of democratic representation, expertise, and social welfare with a long-term vision for human exploration and advancement. Well, that was a lot.
It was a lot. And so you can see I kept a lot of that answer into a lot of the other ones I cut down just to get to the point of it. But I did keep that one in because it's the last one until the next. But I just found it interesting. And again, you go back to it, it's offering up this view. And it was interesting where I kind of posed it where I want to, colonize the universe. And in order to achieve that, yes, it did say that you have to bolster an education system, but you have to put the tech-minded people in charge, the scientists in charge, in order to achieve that, which I found kind of simple, like a
or not democratic.
it's like flat. Yeah, it's just so. I just feel like that's what a child would have told you.
I don't think a child would have done that.
Or maybe that's not the right way of phrasing it, but it just
not,
seems like you want to achieve
seems like the
science
way that,
stuff, put all the scientists in charge. And it's just like, well, I mean,
it didn't say scientists. It said technocrats. It said it said experts. What is it? System of technocracy. We're experts in technology and science. Okay, it does say it's science. Okay, fine.
But why does it have to? I mean, I understand that you may have an institution where they offer guidance, but why do they have to be decision makers? I don't know. And it didn't say that's exactly what you have to do, but
yeah,
I
think based on what you asked, that I take less issue with this. I take less umbrage because I feel like based on the question you asked, this was the appropriate response. It's giving you to tell you what is best for colonizing the universe. So that would make sense. It's not saying what's the best form of government for our society today. It's saying if you wanted to specifically colonize the star system, the best people to have in charge of your government would be scientists and engineers.
Yeah,
that's not so bad. I mean, I don't know what else. I mean,
that's like saying if we want,
it's Laura Roslin.
Well, no, because that's like, all right, let's we need to fix. But it doesn't make sense. It's like, all right, we need to improve infrastructure in this country. So let's elect, I don't know, whoever owns a car company. I don't.
I didn't say that. To be fair, didn't say put Elon Musk as leader of our.
No, but if you want to achieve something germane to a discipline, then it's not that those people. And that's not that you have to elevate everyone's understanding of that discipline. It's that you just have to put those people in charge. I don't know. It just.
I mean, to be fair, if you did want to fix infrastructure, putting together a bunch of engineers who are free of corporate influence would probably yield some of the best results. It's only the corporate leanings and where those engineers may happen to work that would influence not having the very best.
But I did also ask. Yeah, but I did also ask. Yeah, I said advanced technology, but I said equitable rights, right? And what makes humans healthy and allows them to pursue what makes them happy. There are other elements to that. And so why wouldn't you have a governing body or people up with more empathy? Like there was no talk about the human element. It was just put the scientists in charge and you'll colonize the stars. And I guess what makes you happy, what makes you healthy, and what gives you equitable rights is secondary. It's interesting that it went to that, but
it said it should guarantee that all citizens have equitable access to resources, education, and opportunities, regardless of social or economic status.
Yeah, but it didn't say put social workers in charge so that you get that.
No, it didn't. It said the scientists should basically be aware of it.
Anyway, there it is. So what is needed to have a pure democracy?
A pure democracy is a form of government in which all citizens have equal say and directly participate in decision-making and governance without intermediaries or representatives. To have a pure democracy, the following conditions must be met: universal suffrage, active participation, access to information, consensus based on decision-making, majority vote, respect for minority rights, open and transparent government. In practice, it is difficult to achieve a pure democracy in large, complex societies. Just say America.
What is needed to have a pure democracy for a large, complex society?
Why didn't you put USA in like parentheses? A pure democracy would require a fast and reliable means of communication, as well as a secure system for voting and tallying results. The internet and blockchain could achieve this. Citizens need to be educated about the issue at hand,
Therefore, a robust education system is necessary. A strong civic culture that values public engagement and participation would be essential. The decision making would need to be decentralized, with local communities and organizations having a greater say in the decisions that affect them. And lastly, strong protections for minority rights, such as constitutional guarantees of individual liberties and equal treatment under the law, will be necessary so the majority cannot dominate decision making.
In a pure democracy, what are some examples of protections for minority rights that can mitigate the oppression of minority groups by the majority?
Before I answer that, why didn't it simply say that? Why it's not its job, but a historian, like, you could easily poke in to say that there are explicit designs within the American democracy that make it almost impossible to be a pure democracy. In fact, that there are things written into our Constitution, into our framework, that deride it from being a pure democracy, because the founding fathers were not that into pure democracy. But anyway, I digress. I just thought that was interesting. It literally outlines things that are just not truly American. Anyway, go on.
So this is the last bit. You want me to reread it? In a pure democracy, in a pure democracy, what are some examples of protections for minority rights that can mitigate the oppression of minority groups by the majority?
I will give six answers.
Yeah, sure.
Number one, Bill of Rights that outlines protections such as freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and protection against discrimination on the basis of race, gender, or religion. Number two, an independent judiciary that can review laws and decisions made by the majority to ensure that they are in line with the Constitution and do not violate minority rights. Three, all citizens must have an equal opportunity to participate in the decision-making process, such as through the use of proportional representation systems. Number four, it is important for the majority to engage in dialogue with minority groups and be willing to compromise in order to find solutions that work for everyone. Number five, education and awareness campaigns can be used to raise awareness of the issues facing minority groups and promote a culture of tolerance and understanding. Number six, constitutional protections that enshrine the rights of minorities and limit the power of the majority.
I found it interesting because I always like the idea of a pure democracy. I understand the technological hangups that we have, and to your point, it would take a lot of change in this country to ever have that. But it went right to, and because its answers were lengthier, it went right to majorities dominating minority groups, and I thought that was interesting. And I wondered then, would a pure democracy ever work? Because a lot of these things, other than Bill of Rights and constitutional protections, which it did give vague answers on, and we know now that a lot of those things are just open to interpretation, especially the farther away you get from when they're written. A lot of these things just seem to be not firm. Like, all citizens must have equal participation. It's important to engage in dialogue, education, and awareness campaigns. Like, I don't know. I always really like the idea of a pure democracy, but is it wrong to want that? Or is this strong enough to protect people? Or is there more to it? Or do you?
I think that
is
it's
that a loaded
interesting
question?
that it's a loaded. It's a bit of a loaded question. I think it's interesting that for a number of these, it is outlining the government we currently have in place in this country, but without the perversion of minority rights, basically outweighing that of the majority, which is basically what our system currently adheres to, whether it be the oligarchy corporate entity or the rural voice over that of the city majority. Because right now, I mean, that's our issue. I mean, that's the big fight, is that the minority has a much louder voice than the majority. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't know if that answers your question, but
it doesn't, but it opens up another one, because then it's, how do you look at the minorities? How do you segment the population when you're talking about minorities? And what
Well,
You
that's
are
the thing. It's not talking
referencing
about minorities. It's saying the
the
minority.
minority voices. And
But that's not. But that's not the same thing as minorities.
no, I know. I think it's just coincidental because of the history of this country, the way it forced minorities into minority groups, right? I think
Right.
that that's
But
more.
that's still wouldn't be the minority rights this is referring to.
Well, it could be, but it doesn't have to be minorities in the way that you're saying it now. I get it. Um, okay. No, it's interesting.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying because I mean, this is the country was built around not smashing out the voices of the rural parts of it, not having the cities dictate to the rural areas what they can and can't do. That's what that's why I feel like that's what it's referring to. It's going back to the
So you're almost saying
purest
that we
form.
are built for a pure democracy in a way.
In a way, we are based on. I mean, it's still threw in representative systems, which is weird for a pure democracy. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. On its face, yeah, they're just we're out of balance because there weren't enough checks in place in order to ensure a balance, and that cynically was by design. But
Okay.
anyway,
All right. So
that was it. That was the last one.
That is the last one, except for the special surprise.
Okay. What's
And the special surprise, listen, Antoine, I appreciate your effort and your participation. That's why I'm going to take this last one.
Okay. What do you got?
In a random encounter on Earth, no previous knowledge of one another, both characters can use all of their abilities. Who will win in a fight? Superman or Goku?
This has nothing to do with AI.
I asked ChatGPT this.
Oh, you asked this. Oh, wow. Okay. That's cool. All right. And I'm going to give my answer based on what I think ChatGPT said. I'm going to break it down. I'm going to think here. Superman has much more data on him than Goku does because Superman has existed since the 50s. So ChatGPT has far more information to pull from when giving this answer. And I'm going to say based on that factor alone, and basically I'm going to go into to say that because of the sheer amount of comics that have bolstered the reputation of Superman in terms of how many battles he may have had, that alone, in terms of the experience, I'm going to say it went with Superman because Goku does not have the canon space that Superman does.
That is an interesting one. You put thought into it. I'm not going to say whether you're right or wrong. Okay. I am simply going to read what ChatGPT told me.
All right, sweet. Let's do it.
And now it begins. Superman possesses incredible physical strength, speed, durability, and a range of other powers, including heat vision, freeze breath, and superhuman senses. He also has the ability to fly and is invulnerable to most types of physical harm. Goku is an incredibly skilled martial artist with superhuman strength, speed, and endurance. He can also fly and has access to a variety of energy attacks, including the Kamehameha wave. In terms of raw power, both Superman and Goku are incredibly strong. Superman has a significant advantage in terms of durability. Goku's power may be more limitless, especially when he transforms into his various Super Saiyan forms. Superman is often portrayed as being nearly invulnerable. Goku is known for his ability to improve his powers during a fight and performing his best under extreme circumstances. As an AI language model, I do not have personal opinions or preferences. However, based on the information I have, if both characters were able to use everything at their disposal, it's likely that the fight would be very intense and destructive. The combatants would be able to fly, use energy attacks, and fight hand to hand in a battle that would shake the earth and test their limits to their abilities. Based on these factors, and if he was able to use his full range of capabilities and powers to his fullest extent, some fans believe that Goku would have a slight edge in a battle against Superman. That is the most I could get out of it. That's the answer.
I accept that. I accept it said, out of all the data that I have chronicled here, I'm going to take from the Reddit thread with the most upvotes. 672 upvotes on Reddit declare Goku the winner.
So
I like that. I like that.
There you are. There you are, folks. You heard it here. Debate ended by ChatGPT.
I like that it has more conviction on workers' rights. But you ask it whether Superman or Goku could win, and it's like, I'm a robot. I can't tell you.
And it also put it on the fans. It said I could not. I asked the question in so many ways to try and force it to have an opinion the way it described. I hadn't had an opinion on enslaving humans, on what form of government we should have, if Mars was going to be a dystopia, how many hours we should work, the way to kill humans, and then the way humans could take back control. I mean, it would tell you anything. And I tried to pin it down to say, you tell me. You have no idea how many different versions I had of this one. And the most I could get was some fans may believe. It would not go past it. It was so funny.
Ancient alien theorists surmise that Goku may in fact win. I like that. I like it. All right.
Well, I thought that was a fun way to end it. I appreciate everyone that stuck with us. I stayed up late doing it one night. That was all in one night.
Yeah, I mean, that was meaty. Jesus. That's a good day. I like it. That's interesting and new. I feel like we should do a part 2 at some point, centered around a particular issue. I'm sure we won't be alone. I'm sure CNN is trying to do the same thing right now because I'm sure they're starved for interesting content. God knows they can't cover the Ohio train wreck with any satisfaction, so they might as well just do this. But I digress. I appreciate the work you put into it. That was very surprising and a lot of fun. I hope you listener enjoyed it as well.
Next time, if there's a next time, we will be more disciplined in the topic that we cover. And again, we can always use it to clarify things if we don't have an expert too. So that'll be interesting to do.
Yeah. We could use ChatGPT's bias
to confirm our bias.
To confirm our bias, which is what the internet does. It does what the internet does. So funny. It is the YouTube algorithm.
All right.
Serves you up exactly what you want to hear. Jamie, where can they find us?
Guys, girls, don't forget, we have a YouTube content. We have a YouTube page, and we have new YouTube content every week. So please like, subscribe, and we're also on Twitter and every podcast platform.
And with that, we bid you retraction. Oh.